Water is at a premium in Colorado, and there's not that many recreational bodies of water and beaches in Colorado, so we need to protect what we have because it's few and far between.
After zebra mussels were found in Kansas in 2004, that kind of woke people up. We found New Zealand mud snails here the same year. So we started paying attention a little bit to aquatic invasive species and then started forming partnerships. Finding mussels at Lake Mead was a really big deal. That was a game changer for the West and still is. Monitoring was the big thing we were trying to do. We really didn't know what mollusks and macrophytes and crustaceans we had. There weren't a lot of baseline natural history inventories, and we don't have a lot of natural lakes in Colorado, so our lakes are mostly man-made reservoirs and impoundments on our streams and rivers. Getting out and doing those baseline inventories to see what do we have, what protections do we need to put in place for these resources to maintain our fisheries and our aquatic systems. That was really the start, kind of surveying and figuring out, okay, who's doing this work and what do they know? And then once we kind of figured that out, we came up with a plan in terms of what do we need to find out. And so it really started with monitoring and then kind of turned into rapid response and management cooperation. Our program was kind of born because a handful of us just started going out and doing surveys together and teaching each other. I was teaching them about plants, they were teaching me about mollusks, and we were trying to leverage our resources, and it was through those cooperative efforts before we even had a program that we started detecting veligers and eDNA, and that basically got us the momentum and the political support. It's a way of life issue, it's a quality of life issue because it impacts our water storage and delivery systems, which are critical for drinking water, for agricultural production, and for power production. So we're a little bit different out west because we have reservoirs that were created for a number of purposes, and we're lucky that we get to play on them, we get to boat and fish on them, but we have to protect that water supply.
Here at Bar Lake, again, we're just a 10-horse motor limit, so we don't get a lot of the big boats that tend to carry this stuff in. But obviously and justifiably, the irrigation company was kind of worried about it because they didn't want that coming in damaging their infrastructure or anything like that. So they kind of immediately put on these, okay, we need to make sure that we have a program in place to make sure that we don't become contaminated and that we don't get any of that species in this lake. And not only just for them, for their infrastructure, for their dam, for their water flow mechanics, but just for our recreational. We're a lot of fishing based here, and if we get a lot of aquatic nuisance species in here, then that can obviously affects the food web, which can hurt the ecosystem down the line, affect our fisheries, and then it just gets to the point where it's just not that great of a place to recreate. We see that it's a lot easier to contain it where it is now and try to prohibit the transport and get it into the other lakes than it is to deal with it afterwards, because usually when these species get in, they're pretty much in there. There's nothing you can really do. There hasn't been anything, nothing's really been developed to try and eradicate them or even try to slow their spread throughout even the lake itself. The boaters that we have here and the recreationists, it's amazing when we do our inspections and everything, and they're just like, hey, we totally understand. And it's two different sides. The irrigation company, they're looking at it from an economic side. Our recreationists are looking from a recreational side, but it's the same thing. It affects them the same way. And they totally understand, especially if we've got to, hey, we're going to have to decon your boat, and it's going to take 20 minutes. They're usually pretty understandable about that. They just want to do the right thing. Fishermen want to catch fish, farmers want their water, and in this case, keeping the species out of here, it's all a common goal. I've had one boater this year, when we had to decontaminate their boat, they told me, they said, you know, for the past several years, I hated this. You know, I complained every time I came out here, I didn't like it. And then they said, last year we went down to Lake Powell and we saw how bad it is down there. And they're like, we totally understand now. We are more than happy to go through this process. So, and that's part of the educational too. You know, they just got a firsthand view of what could happen if it got in here.
They just want to get on the water quickly. They don't want a long period of time of going over it. And so if they can assist us with making that check-in process and that inspection quicker, that information that's been relayed to them, I think, is the most important piece of how to speed up their in and out time so that their next time around, it's again just as speedy. And then being aware that if you do go to Powell or Mead somewhere infested, you're going to need to take that extra time before you get back on the water. And it's taken 10 years, but it's been a great improvement over time with what kind of client and guest you get greeted at on the ramp when you do the inspection. People are much more willing to give you a little bit of break when you have 6 boats all of a sudden show up at once. You're taking care of their equipment. You're there to make sure that their motor is going to be running, that the insides of their boat, that their hull doesn't have anything growing on it, and the sailors want a nice sleek hull to go fast. So it as long as you're taking care of their water and their boat, that they're also going to assist you with that and be fully understanding.
The biggest issue was the zebra and quagga mussels, and we learned that they can completely annihilate the environment in the water and basically filter out everything for nutrients for the fish and all other wildlife that are in the water, as well as they can clog up any kind of water treatment facilities or boats that are in the water. So we got on board with the state and helped to start the program for protecting all of the waters throughout the state. It was a very arduous process. It was a lot of education, and it took a lot of time and effort to educate our users to understand the magnitude of the impact that could happen. Particularly for us, we are a drinking water source, and so that is our number one go-to at this point in time, is we have to protect our drinking water source. And the cost to mitigate a zebra or quagga mussel infestation would be in the millions for our drinking water pipelines and things like that. So the cost would be very impactful, not only to the recreation, but to the city as a whole.
Initially, there was some pushback from people. I think, again, stemming from an ignorance, not understanding how bad of an impact they can actually have. Once people understand how negative the impacts are, they usually are totally on board. I mean, it's in all of our best interest to keep the waters clean. No recreators, infrastructure, everybody's pulling on the same oar there. None of us want to have them here. It's not just economic as much as it is recreation. You know, all of my customers, this is one of their favorite pastimes, and if these opportunities go away, they're gone. So everybody definitely has a vested interest in making sure that we keep these open.
Colorado's natural resources have been valued by everyone in this state for forever, and it's something that's really important to the people of Colorado. So for us, as soon as we heard about it, we jumped right in. The state does a really good job of putting out a lot of public materials, of getting those public materials to the dealer, which is so important. So we carry those things to the boat show. So we start in January and we release public policy on things that have changed, what's coming down the pipeline, what to expect at the boat ramp, how our customers can keep their boats clean, drained, and dried and make things easier for them along the way, kind of what to look for. So those are things that continually evolve every year.
The states that have been doing this preventative or containment watercraft inspection decontamination, we have not seen more infestations over time. So those that are doing prevention and that have implemented watercraft inspection and decontamination have not suffered from invasions. And we're looking at more than a decade of work now. So I think it's pretty apparent that this really does work. Those that are not doing inspections and decontaminations consider to see more and more invasions every single year. So we're always looking to expand the partnership and the coalition and bring more and more partners on board, because every state has resources to protect. We may want different things, but nobody wants mussels and everybody wants clean water. And that's, you know, if you can get folks just down to that level, you can really move the needle.